Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. If you're a new friend or an old friend, we're glad you're here with us. And we wonder, what are you doing for your beautiful work right now? What's going on in your world? We want to know. We want to know how we can support you, how we can help you, what kind of conversation you want us to have and invite you into. We want to know and we want to hear from you. So please drop us a line, drop us a comment, drop us an email. All our contact information is there. We're here for you, aren't we, Laurel?
We are. And we really do want to connect with you.
We do. We do. We want to feel like we are living in a community, an expanding community of people that are doing this inner work, this beautiful work, because we know from our own personal experience that, wow, when you're connected with people doing this work, your life becomes more beautiful by the minute, literally.
It does. It absolutely does. I've been thinking a lot about connection and community. And the third word that was coming up recently for me was camaraderie.
Yeah.
Like we can have community and we can have connection, but the combination of camaraderie within connection and community, it's almost as if it's the icing on the cake.
And it just feels so good. It makes life feel so much richer, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we're wrapping up our first month of season 3, Deepening Your Beautiful Work, this podcast. And we are this month been focusing on your internal GPS versus using outside influences as your way to determine what moves to make in your life. And today, our topic is, what does your nervous system have to do with your clarity? And we're going to answer that question today, aren't we, Laurel? We're going to talk about
Yes.
all things nervous system and why, when your nervous system is going a little haywire, you can't get clear, and how that presents a real problem in your life. Yeah. Yeah.
I love this conversation. You know how much I love talking about the nervous system and I love learning about the nervous system.
I love learning about it too. I can't get enough of it.
I know that's how I feel. And
I,
it's interesting because once, at least for me, once I started to really become much more aware of the role my nervous system plays in my behavior, in my choices, in my world,
mm,
I really, really realized it was like a big aha moment of, oh, I can be the driver of my nervous system. I don't have to be the passenger.
yeah. Yeah. Getting whiplash.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like that's where I was so many years ago. It was like my nervous system was like reacting, reacting, reacting. And I was like, being whipped around here, there, and everywhere, because I
Yes.
was so in tune with what was going on outside me. And then I couldn't control it, which thankfully I learned in my 30s and moved on from there, and learned how to calm down my nervous system, work with it proactively. And really, that was the beginning of developing my beautiful life. So that's why we're talking about this today. So, Laurel, let's talk about. I want to make sure we hit on a couple things. One is emotional overwhelm and clarity, lack of clarity. And I also want to talk about being in fight or flight. And
Oh,
I
yes.
know we've talked about being in fight or flight before, but let's talk a little bit more about, um, I guess, helping people determine whether they're in fight or flight, and then how to help them, strategize about how to use some tools to get out of that space, and
Yes.
why that affects your clarity. So yeah, where do
Can,
you want to dig in? Go ahead.
well, and I want to add to that the fight or flight and the freeze, right?
Yes.
And there's even the newer term that people are talking about with fawn, right? That the fawn is the gentle, no movement. The freeze is
Mm,
really when you're stuck because
yeah.
so I think all of those are reactions from your nervous system, so it might be a reaction to fear, to overwhelm, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about
Oh,
overwhelm.
I love that
Go
you
ahead.
introduced that term fawn, because I haven't heard that yet. And I love that because I think that I did a lot of fawning. I think that's what I did a lot of.
Oh,
I
me
had my
too.
freeze early on, and then it went to fawning for a long time before I could get over
Yeah.
there.
And
Yeah.
and it is when you think about that, maybe it's I'm going to say the people pleasing might be you know, an example of fawning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we become really docile, right? We keep the
Yeah.
peace, and we are gentle and careful and cautious.
Yeah.
And that is just it's one of the ways we keep ourselves safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I
isn't
think,
it funny we have four different safety valves to focus on today?
yeah, yeah. And how our nervous system is designed to keep us protected, right? And keep us safe. So the first thing I think that anybody who, particularly knows they have issues with anxiety or feels like they might be, in fight or flight a lot of the time is uh, getting in the habit of uh, giving your body and your being the message that you're safe and that you can keep yourself safe. And so if you now let's just qualify this a little bit too, because if you're a listener and you've been through a lot of trauma and you've had experiences that have been highly threatening to you, your work in this is going to be a little different than the average person who just developed habits of feeling fearful in life and having some less dramatic things happen, so to speak. Okay, so I just want those of you that feel like, oh, that's easy for you to say, to know that we get it. We get that your pathway is going to be a little different out of here, and that I want to really just encourage you too to go get some help with people that know how to do this work really well. There's great trauma specialists out there, people that really get it and have great techniques to help you move through that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that, giving yourself a safe space to
Hmm.
be in
Yeah.
is really important. So the
Yeah.
resources that we have available to us now are so different than I'm going to say when I was growing up, or
Yeah.
the resources my mother had, right? So
Hmm.
so that is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that especially when you've been through traumatic experiences, violent experiences, it's really important that you do some healing work with somebody who is safe, because to be in a space with another person and know that you can be okay, your nervous system needs to get that message, right? And the
Yes,
only way it's going to get that message is to be in space with somebody else. Like, you can do a lot on your own, but I think your beingness has to know there are safe people in the world and safe places in the world that you can exist and
absolutely.
relax. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So signs of being in fight or flight, you can look them up on the internet. There's lots out there. And then there's going to be a lot out there that, uh, might, or there might be things out there that you go, well, that doesn't really fit with how I feel. And so you might have symptoms that, or signs of being in fight or flight, that might be a little different than what you're going to read when you Google it. So
yes,
don't, I think if you feel like you have um, a sense of being in an anxious space all the time, you're probably in some level of fight or flight. And so just
yes.
trust yourself that you're there and start working on it.
And another example that just came up for me is the busyness, right? When you are a high functioning, I'm going to say,
Yeah.
adult, that one of the things that we do that we might not even identify as anxiety, but is keep ourselves super busy.
Yes,
So
that's
so
great.
when our physical being is always in motion and our nervous system is always, you know, amped up,
Yeah.
then it's almost like it feeds itself, so that we don't know how to be when we're settled and still. And it's when we're settled and still that all of a sudden we become anxious, because our nervous system is like, well, what is going on here? Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, when I think about fight or flight, often it implies for me that I'm running from something,
Mhm.
but it might not be really flight. It might be my choice in how I live. Right.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I like to think about the nervous system similar to a muscle, that there's two sides of it.
Yeah.
And if we live in one side and we use that side and we strengthen that side, which would be, the doing, the fight or flight, the busyness, then the other side, which is your rest and digest, it's the ability to be in stillness,
Yeah.
is weak, and
Right.
it's not practiced.
Right.
And no
It goes
wonder
in.
it's so
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
darn uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. I think everybody needs to just kind of stay with that for a minute, right? Is really acknowledging if you know that you don't spend time in rest and repose and you can't be comfortable there, like it's impossible for you to let go completely and relax there, then you know that part of your muscle has atrophied.
Yes,
And it's a very simple equation is the only way to get that muscle stronger is to work it, right?
that's right.
Which is so, like I don't know, is that countercultural to the American way? Work, 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 do, right? And so
Yes,
you have to work, work, work your rest, rest, rest
I
muscles, right?
know, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me of, there was a time when I, um, was reading on keeping your brain healthy and doing things with your non-dominant hand, right?
Yeah.
So I went through this phase of learning to brush my teeth with my left hand, right? And practice writing with my left hand. And it was uncomfortable, and it was, it didn't come easy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think about that with
Mhm.
my own ability to rest and be still, right? Like I probably am more comfortable in the doingness and the productivity and giving myself time, which is where my meditation comes in, or my walks in nature, right? Um, I for years I've said I don't rest well. I don't sit still well. Um,
Mhm.
and so how can I quiet my nervous system in a way that works for me just because I want it to be a healthy nervous system. I don't
Yeah.
want to get stuck in one side or the other.
Oh, right, right. Because the other side, tends to lead to a sense of feeling unproductive, lazy, kind of slothful, and sometimes, that's just part of. It depends on your makeup. We all have a different energetic, Ayurvedic, whatever makeup. And so we have tendencies in one way or another. And so if your tendencies are one way rather than the other, then your work is in balancing the opposite, right? And to
Yes.
be on the lookout to make sure that you're doing the work of staying in some relative balance, right? Yeah.
Yes. Or strengthening your ability to be in either or. So I like to think of things,
Yeah.
as a pendulum, right?
Right. Right.
Do
Go
you
back
have
and
the
forth.
do you have the ability to be all in one side, but recover back to the middle, right? No matter what
Yeah.
side you're in. How can
Yeah.
you bring yourself back to the middle?
Yeah. And I know for me, I like to operate that way. Like I like to be really busy and get a lot done, but then I like to have like a really good downtime. Like I like that. Not too extreme, but I do like the fullness of the feeling of being like in a full productive place and then in a full rest place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit too about what this has to do with your clarity, Laurel, because I feel like
Yes.
that's, like I really want to circle back to this because um when we're talking about doing this beautiful work and we're talking about having a beautiful life, crafting a beautiful life, it comes through clarity, clarity of what you want, clarity about how you feel, clarity about where you are with your relationships that are all around you and whether they're working or not working. Like we need this clarity to develop the quality of life we want and to go in the direction we want to go in.
Yes.
And when it gets disrupted, our clarity gets disrupted, right? This is when we get into this state of feeling confused, or I don't, sometimes it makes us apathetic. It can do all kinds of things that don't make us feel good about ourselves ultimately. So yeah, I mean, being in fight or flight, right? What happens is your nervous system is starting to overproduce and it's producing chemicals and the stress hormones and all that stuff that interrupt your ability to think clearly. And I think it also interrupts your ability to, Laurel, don't you, to connect with that inner GPS.
Yes, I absolutely. Oftentimes when we're in that fight or flight, it's our nervous system sending messages to our brain that then causes the brain to become very active in thoughts about how to protect us, how to get us out of the situation we're in,
Yeah.
right? And so, you know, just having that ability to pause, to get out of the brain, even if your nervous system is saying to the brain, get busy, you've got a life to save here, right?
Yeah.
Um, how can you quiet that mind, calm your nervous system so that you do have clarity?
Right, right. And regain a pathway into clarity.
Yes,
Because I feel
yes,
like the clarity might not come immediately. It comes through your ability to relax into your full sense of yourself, use all the wisdom faculties that are available. We talk about this lowest energy center, your heart space, power center, your head space. Like we want all of these working together. And when we
yes.
overuse the head space, we get confused. That's the other thing. There isn't clarity. There's confusion. The thoughts roll around and I'm repeating the thoughts and I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. And, you get that feeling of, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
And let's talk about too many choices, right? So
Yeah. So
that
many
happens when you're
choices.
in the fight or flight, right? Your brain can process however many million thoughts in a minute, and it relies on past behavior, past data,
Yeah.
right? What worked in the past. And so this is where we get pulled back into repetitive patterns and behaviors, right?
Mhm.
And so having the clarity, even clarity that, oh, I see what's happening here, right?
Yeah.
I'm gravitating towards a past pattern,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes even the clarity of knowing yourself well as you discover,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I know my life has been, it's been this path of self-discovery each and every year that it
Yep.
gets peeling back the onion skin and learning more about myself and being able to have know the role that my nervous system plays in that and how can I manage my nervous system so that I can really have clarity about who I am.
Yeah. 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 So I would say to our listeners, if you're feeling like you have trouble sitting still, you can't get into that place where you can really rest and let go completely. You want to use that as a marker to begin the pathway to developing that muscle so that you can get there, right? If you're
Yes.
feeling confused all the time, you want to start paying attention to what's going on with your nervous system and how that's all happening. I want to come back and connect the dots too to this idea of emotional overwhelm and inability to have clarity because emotional overwhelm is kind of like it's like a version of fight or flight.
Yes.
It's your system, your nervous system gets so flooded by emotional content that it can't process mentally, right? Because the body is too disrupted, literally,
Right.
to relax enough to think clearly and to clear that pathway to good cognitive activity, right? So again, it's like if right? One of the things when we have a whole episode on grief. We did a great episode with we had a great guest come and talk about grief work. And if you've been had an experience where you've been through a great loss, uh, and loss can be anywhere from loss of a job, divorce, loss of a home, financial problems, death of a loved one. I mean, there are many kinds of losses. It doesn't just mean a death of somebody.
Yes.
Um, that it puts you in a state where it's really hard to get clear for a while
Yes, it is. It
because of
really is.
the emotional overwhelm. We go through so many stages of different kinds of emotions with grief, and because we don't grieve well in the Western world, I'm going to say that more like a generalized statement, but I think that that's pretty close to being true still. um, we oftentimes are carrying around old emotions connected with grief and loss that haven't been processed, and so every little loss stimulates it, and now we easily get into this emotional overwhelm place. And
Yes.
to me, the only real I guess remedy for that, right, is to have a space where you can start to discharge some of that emotion safely and then reevaluate where you are. And that's a very particular process. That's why talk therapy works, nicely for that. Being in safe groups, that's really our, for Laurel and I, when we offer a retreat, it's going to be a space where this is like the real deal of, being in a space where it's safe to be witnessed, it's safe to speak, it's safe to be where you are. And even if you don't feel safe, we will create the safe space for your experience, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, that's really important to think about the type of loss, from big to small, right?
Yeah.
That, again, going back to your brain relying on past data to keep you
Yes.
safe, right? And so, I mean, you and I have both experienced divorce. I can say, learning how to be in relationship again after a divorce, that is a long process. And my body, my being, my heart, my soul, my brain really needed to go slowly into that, you know, knowing I was safe, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I want to mention is our brain doesn't know the difference, and our nervous system doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat, right?
Right.
And so if we have had a past experience, maybe being let go from a job, we may develop some type of anxiousness over another job, right? Um, and so being able to feel safe and bring yourself back to a safe space is really important. Can we
Yeah.
talk for a minute about practices
Yes.
to to
Yes.
calm when you find your, or let's, symptoms I want to mention.
Okay. Okay. You
I
want to
know
just, yeah, go ahead.
I know for myself, I don't identify much as anxiety, but I know when I've got a racing heart, when my
Yeah.
pulse elevates, when I may be carrying some heat in my upper body that is not normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know,
Throat, chest, face.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Even something like a lower back
Hmm.
of discomfort. Like these are my signs
Yeah.
that I'm not in a state of calm,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, I would encourage our listeners to, as you get to know your nervous system, start to look at the signs, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
that your body's giving you. It
Yep.
could be butterflies, right?
Hmm.
I love to talk to my clients about the fact that excitement and anxiety are the same emotion.
Yep.
They're often the same feeling. It might be
Yep.
butterflies,
Yep.
and so what are the thoughts? What's the circumstance that determines, is it excitement and eagerness, or is it anxiety and fear?
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Because the overwhelm, when we think about overwhelm builds, and often we become, that's where the freeze comes in.
Hmm.
Sometimes we can't move anything forward when we're overwhelmed.
Right. Right. And that's
Even the
protection.
littlest. Yeah, of
Right.
course.
Because we'll get ourselves in trouble. I mean, ultimately, if you operate in overwhelm all the time, you're making yourself a mess. So it's like, it's a good thing that we've actually do shut down at some point,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love to think about this because animals, we see this happen, right?
Yeah.
When an animal is afraid or under threat, it freezes.
Yeah.
It even plays dead, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like, and so there's a lot here of what our nervous system is designed to do to keep us safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
The procrastination, the avoidance. I mean, those are some of my techniques from back in the day, and even
Uh-huh.
still I
Yeah.
might struggle with procrastination,
Sure.
um,
Sure.
not knowing how to move forward, and it really is because I don't know if moving forward is going to be safe or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was great. Now, in terms of like strategy, right, to deal with it, first thing on the list is breath work.
Absolutely.
Don't underestimate breath work. I mean, in there we have so much data, so much research, so much scientific proof that your breath work can alter your state of being so rapidly and in such great result with such great result that and it's all under your control of your breath work, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
And
yeah,
box
beginning,
breathing,
yeah.
box breathing, right? Four,
Mhm.
4, 4. Inhale to 4, hold 4, exhale 4. I tell clients
Hold 4.
3 rounds of that.
Yeah,
No, yeah, 3 rounds of breath or box breathing
yeah.
calms your heart rate and your nervous system.
Right, right. Absolutely. And it does something about too, like balancing the sides of your brain. It does all kinds of really great things, So
Mm,
box breathing, and just 3 really deep breaths, like I know take a big breath in, see if you can take a more of an exhale. Like more of an exhale will help to also calm your nervous system, right? So if you take a breath in and then exhale as much as you can and do it at least 3 times, right?
yes.
So
Yeah.
these are just the basics. There's so much with breath work that we can talk about, but we're not going to do that on this particular podcast, this one episode. The other thing is tapping. I can't, I am such a proponent of tapping. So if you're listening to this podcast anywhere and you can't see me, I'm actually going to do a quick round of tapping just so that people that are watching on YouTube can see it, because I feel like this is really important um, to see how simple it is. Okay, and so the thing about the tapping too is once you've done it enough times, which doesn't require a lot of times once you learn it, you can do it anywhere, anytime, really easily. And you can actually do it a little surreptitiously if you're in places where people are around you, right? So the beginning is you're tapping the side of your hand, and then you're coming up here and tapping the inside of your eyebrow, the outside of your eyebrow, under your eye, under your nose, under your mouth, at the collarbone, under your arm, and then the crown of the head. Okay. And
And
so, yeah, go ahead.
we have a past episode on
We
tapping,
do.
so
We
we'll
have a
put
whole
that in the
past.
show notes.
We'll put that in the show notes. And I have a YouTube video that I made many, many years ago on tapping. So Laurel Holland, look up Laurel Holland and tapping, and you're gonna find that one too. So,
Yeah.
but I just wanted everybody to see, like, look at how simple that was, right? And as I did it, okay, because I'm really in touch, right, with my energy and my breath work and all that stuff, right? As soon as I started tapping, I could feel my body start tingling. I mean, it immediately impacts the state of your nervous system. And
So
and
good.
we can, like these are things that like we know now. It's so beautiful to have these tools at our fingertips.
Could
And
you imagine what the world would be like if, when we were in a traffic jam on the highway, that we tapped instead of honked our horns?
wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? Tap,
Oh,
tap, tap instead of
beautiful
tap, tap,
life.
tap, 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 tap. I know.
Do you have any other suggestions? I have one more
Yeah, go
about
ahead. Yeah.
water.
Mm,
So
beautiful.
put yourself in water. If you have
Mm,
access to a bathtub, if
yeah.
you have a shower, if you have a lake, a pond, an ocean, put
Mm,
yourself in water, because water is that beautiful energetic conduit, right?
yeah.
And when you can feel your body in the fluidity, if you will, of water, like any, you cannot be frozen when you're in water. It's
So
impossible.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I even remember reading things too about casting your thoughts into water, right? And letting them be carried away, right? And then I also want to don't we have again so much at our fingertips. Insight Timer. You can find some of our meditations on there, and millions more. Right.
Yes.
So lots of freebies there. And don't have to pay anything. Just download the app on your phone, Insight Timer, and use guided meditations in the moment.
Yes.
There's people there that can support you in finding, your way into learning how to self-soothe. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, aromatherapy,
Aromatherapy. Beautiful.
right? Having an aroma that brings you back to a safe space.
Mm,
It might be chocolate chip cookies that make
yeah.
you bring you back. It might be a strawberry field. What is the aroma that calms your nervous system? Um, I
Yeah.
think we each have that.
We do. And I know that I had read years ago when I was first studying a lot of energetics and Chinese medicine, about the power of aromatherapy in terms of healing trauma. It is
Yes.
one of the most effective
Wow.
ways to do that. Yeah. So I don't think we've explored it as much in depth necessarily as some of these other techniques, but to begin to allow yourself to experiment a little bit with that can be a really powerful healing tool.
Yes. So many tools at our fingertips.
So many tools. So we send you off here with the idea of really doing some exploration for yourself around the state of your nervous system, to begin to understand it a little bit better, to know that it's an integral part of your ability to use your internal GPS in a very effective way, so that you can guide your life from the inside out and do it well. So you've got to get to be friends, with your nervous system, and learn how to work with it really well, so you can regain clarity and move
Yes.
forward.
And I want to offer that that's the work that you and I do with our clients,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like we help others
Yeah.
find clarity and and a calm path forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Out of overwhelm into safety. That's what we do. And
Absolutely.
and it's I think why I love the work and I love talking about this beautiful work that you and I have done and we're helping others do.
Yeah, I do too. Laurel, thank you for a great conversation today. I hope this supported our listeners, our friends out there. We're looking forward to getting to know you better. Do let us know how this served you, and we'll be back for more beautiful work, beautiful life. Yeah,
Looking forward to it.
me too. Thanks, Laurel. Bye
Bye.
for now.
Bye, listeners.